There exists a lively diversity in the great array of cultures in the world, and they're exemplified in all the music that we choose to call traditional. But behind this amorphous term, there emerges another universe, that of communication. Of course, communication isn't limited to the dimension of sound, but probably it is through sound that the greatest variety and degree of creativity have been achieved. The great story of human communication starts in the recesses of daily life. To maintain or re-establish social harmony, to educate, to seduce, to stimulate. All those functions that enable humanity to flourish. In parallel, humans develop vocal techniques, sonorous tools, languages, strategies that let them communicate over distances. Then, 50,000 years ago, they conceived the design of communication with the invisible in order to develop religious awareness. To communicate here, where work is done, there to the limits of exploration and experience, and beyond, even to the invisible world. All this would then become one of the main challenges for mankind. In Africa and Asia, even today, there are societies retaining a traditional way of life that have kept tools and techniques and strategies of communication whose origins reach far back into the past. This film is an invitation to take this timeless voyage back to beginnings. First of all, we set off to meet certain ethnic groups in Burkina Faso where very old cultural heritage still exists. There, in daily activities and village rituals, we will discover tools for making sounds, techniques and strategies of communication. Instigating physical effort sets off energizing components of sound produced by the players themselves or by outside intervention. But sometimes these have an altogether different purpose. So, in the area of the millstone outside, Lobi women freely express their feelings in traditional songs or improvised songs, unburdening outbursts, denouncing misfortunes relating to husbands or the family or the neighbors. Everyone may know how to draw energy by using such self-stimulating techniques, but the preference of African village people is directed toward an altogether different dynamic. Gan women combine their efforts to extract from shea nuts a fatty substance used in cooking and cosmetics. To make the pounding rhythmic and to stimulate each other, another woman, either too old or too ill to perform the work, beats cadence on a water drum in a calabash. This deep-toned percussion instrument is the only one that women are permitted to play. Singing is democratically allowed for all, but beating on skin drums is the exclusive reserve of men. In group singing, each woman, in turn, can suggest a song from the traditional repertoire, then illustrated by the chorus using a set formula or inspired by the moment. Here the songs serve a double function, to stimulate and to convey some knowledge. If communication through sound has a mainly social function, sometimes it has other objectives as well. Herdsmen have developed personalized languages to communicate with their animals. Calling, guiding, stopping, these are maneuvers that experienced cattle drivers achieve almost exclusively by voice, imitating sounds, shouts, even whistles. While the animals are grazing, the herdsmen sometimes take advantage of this respite to play on their instruments. This is not just a distraction. This youngster is well aware of the calming effect that music has on the animals. On occasion, he even praises the creatures, but on his lute, of course. In the bush, as well as in the village, music for children is meant to occupy idle moments, but it's never totally without some sense of communication. Playing is a socializing factor of primary importance. It can be just for fun, instructional, or linked to rituals of seduction. Sometimes musical instruments are required, songs, body slaps, all at the heart of this entertainment, like this vibrating bowl, also used in accompaniment. Playing concerns all the people with no distinction in man or woman. This feminine playing is overwhelmingly favored for the physical sensation it produces, for its conviviality, and perhaps for the self-confidence it puts to the test. Its function is extended by the instructional nature of the songs that evoke marriage, morals, and the loyalty of the Gan people to their king. Some music called entertaining can be placed at the meeting point of performance, games, and festivals, and even of amorous relations.
Attention.
Bodera berndemo way. Bodera berndemo macha elachanyire. Bodera berndemo macha elachanyire. Bodera berndemo macha elachanyire.
The mouth bow has a thin, reedy sound and encourages a certain intimacy in the group that has to gather in close to hear what is said by the words of the musician as he incorporates them into his playing. Some forms of sound communication of an intimate nature have very precise objectives. To calm children and lull them to sleep, women can delve into a vast repertoire of secular lullabies. Being gentle with children is preferred, but if necessary, more dissuasive methods can be used. The Gan, for instance, have something totally original. They can imitate the roar of a lion using a hollowed-out calabash, one that's used in the kitchen, and a large spoon for stirring millet gruel, and then ash is added to increase friction. If that's not enough, the child might be told to stop crying or the beast will come and eat him up. Every age segment has its own instruction. Before schooling comes to brush aside all other education, proverbs and riddles play a role in sharpening understanding and developing memory. Their purpose is to instill good moral values and to put the child on guard against the wiles of some men. As for enigmas, they give each individual an occasion for self-expression concerning any topic that arises, one usually presented as a problem intended to instruct as well as to amuse. These tales are like any story, but they alternate between narration and song, and this to the delight of those assembled. In the bush, there where traditional societies are largely deprived of modern means of communication, songs remain the preferred way for communicating information. Rare are musicians of traditional oral music who know how to compose music and write songs that awaken the conscience. Akuna Pharma, a musician of the Gan ethnic group, has devoted his life to creating and interpreting themes that warn young people against the dangers of AIDS and the illusion of all the easy money to be made by going away to work. These themes are echoed by the women in their work and games, and usually mothers trying to steer their children from paths of perdition. It's true that many in the villages have a certain talent for singing and playing instruments, but the community still does not recognize them as accomplished musicians. Mastering musical instruments and learning the repertoire are absorbed mainly by attending rituals and festivities. All the same, complex instruments are learned with experienced players in special lessons. Only those attaining a certain level of proficiency and who are dedicated are considered truly musicians. Instruments requiring study, like the balafon, are available in the center of the village for young musicians to practice and to test the very young. Recognizing an individual as a musician usually means that his performances are paid, either in money or in goods. Appealing to the rich, the powerful, or simply esteemed men can furnish a considerable revenue for musicians who know how to praise, if the praise is abundant and the musician talented. This is the role of the griot in monde societies. In the confraternity of hunters, praisers, who are not necessarily griots, glorify men for their supreme hunting skill, accompanied by a harp lute and a scraper. If the performance is brilliant, praiser and praised both emerge winners. Some are eager to spread their reputation, but others more modestly just want to extend the distance their voices carry, using sound instruments for that purpose. When out hunting, wooden whistles held to be magic help the hunters to communicate with each other, signaling an animal's death or completion of a ritual, giving directions or asking for help. When it's a matter of gathering in the stragglers who might be miles away, there is no hesitation in letting the gunpowder speak. A few decades back, for most people living in the southwest of Burkina Faso, a murder meant organized revenge by the family and members of the victim's clan. So warriors were summoned using trumpets made from antelope horns and wooden whistles, carrying messages of encouragement. Once vengeance had been achieved successfully, villagers were informed, using the same instruments, reinforced with massive shouting. But these demonstrations of a morbid joy were unable to mask other cries, those of pain that humanity has known for thousands of years, rising to the great beyond. If man does admit to the physical ripping away of one's being from the sustaining earth, death, most often he still believes in a living continuity of the soul. This is why ritual funeral rites are held, partly to pay homage to the man or woman who served the community and family, and partly to placate, to put at peace the surviving soul that could come back and create sickness and death. Sometimes this soul is used as a mediator among the ancestors, hoping that during the lifetime of the person he or she had negotiated a favorable place among them. During funerals, the practice is to sing of the departed one's virtues. But sometimes it happens that his or her bad actions are recalled as a way of maintaining a social balance in the world of the living. Everybody fears having a reputation sullied before the great departure to the land of the ancestors. In the course of these funerals, the true masters of communication are the balafon and the drum, two instruments endowed with the word, that communicate with both worlds, that of the living and that of the ancestors. For 24 hours straight, they emit a knowledge learned from tradition. They animate and give the dances their rhythms, genuinely absolving pain. Neither blind chance nor microbes find a place in animist societies. That is why the cause of death must be discovered. It has to have resulted from non-observance of a law, that of men or of spirits. Before the funeral ceremony can come to a close, various personalities of the village and the family come, one by one, and do what is called questioning the body. The responses to questions are indicated by lateral and other movements of the carriers of the stretcher containing the possessions of the departed. At the conclusion of the interrogation, the deceased's wishes are granted, that music be played on the balafon, and that a dance be performed for him one last time to remind everyone that he was a valiant man. In societies practicing spirit religion, techniques for communicating with the world of the invisible are better developed than anywhere else. To discover the cause of a sickness or a problem, you go to a diviner. In West Africa, the iron bell is the instrument most often used to awaken the spirit entities. Once connection is established between here and the beyond, it's the spirits themselves that guide the practitioner.
Diremano torna mo ilo diche mo non diran chiami inti e vedi e te gli mano quasi dirà Are you content? You didn't know content of one tata. Hey, I'm going to know where I'm for the banana for nothing without you to damn for it. Monsieur Bully. Very remember. Now, what I'm hunting him here. It's a bonnet, my child. It's a bonnet, my child. Mohammed, I am where it's a bootiam. Bootiam.
But sometimes the bell is not limited to calling the spirits. After using the bell to question his spiritual beings, this traditional healer uses it to channel beneficial forces of the spirits into the patient, and thus discover where objects are hidden in his body, that is, the physical results of spells that have been cast on him. It's only after extracting these objects that the patient can regain good health. Other communication tools playing a double role are used in relations that unite the healer with his spirits. The Gan people use gourd rattles to awaken and consult the spirits. Repeated shaking of the instrument together with songs inspired by the great beyond quickly put the diviner into a possession trance. The spirits thus reveal themselves vocally through the voice of their servant, who then might reveal the cause of the fire that ravaged the house of a villager. Now we leave Africa and head for Southeast Asia and China to discover other modes of communication. Family gatherings provide friendly moments during which music produces a sharing of emotions, bringing people closer together. In turn, everyone present can become a musician or a singer, and this adds to the gaiety, unless, as here, they prefer to invite accomplished musicians. In China, calendar holidays provide the authorities occasions to organize massive congregations where everyone can both express artistic accomplishment and appreciate other modes of expression. It's a way of inviting the various ethnic groups that live side by side on a daily basis to learn more about each other and thus encourage their living together in peace. Stringed instruments are limited in how far away they can be heard, and this is in contrast to the wind and percussion instruments that are better for communicating over long distances. This procession is headed for a temple dedicated to a legendary hero of Vietnam. Large numbers of conch, drums, and gongs announce to all the villagers that festivities are beginning. These instruments of a military nature recall the warrior quality of the hero, and perhaps these are the same instruments used to rally the warriors 3,000 years ago. These can communicate over great distances, but their sounds cannot convey any message. They can only signal the time and place of periodic events. The ultimate objective of distant communication is transmitting complete messages, coded or not. When a melody is involved, the piece being interpreted is often the determining factor. As for senders and receivers, usually messages are read following a pre-established program. This woman is calling to her husband on a xylophone, and he knows very well the source of the message. He recognizes the melody and understands the reason for his being called. Men have learned how to communicate with their domestic animals using sound, but they have also provided the animals with a way to communicate back. Herdsmen attach wooden or bamboo bells to locate and identify the animals at a distance. To the uninitiated, all the bells sound alike, but every herdsman can identify which bell is on which animal. The determining factor may seem to be the pitch of the sound, but there are other more subtle criteria: the timbre, frequency of striking, and the way it resounds. A man with a practiced ear can definitely identify each animal. The mountains provide an excellent terrain for transmitting sound signals over considerable distances. The Hmong, who live at high altitudes, use green leaves to communicate between two distant points. The high frequencies of this whistling comport a real language and easily find pathways through immense air masses. If the setting is appropriate, messages of love, the most often sent, can be decoded with no difficulty, even several miles away. There is one problem. These intimate messages are carried to many unintended ears and are decoded. In Laos, in Buddhist pagodas, ways of communicating over distance are adapted to each specific need. A powerful drum and cymbals call the faithful living outside the temple. A modest bronze bell calls the monks living inside. The number of strikings and their rhythm announce the event. Prayers and praises are the common denominator of all religions. With these, the faithful hope to attract blessings of spiritual beings and thank them for granting their requests. Beyond the mere words, the great religions have surely sought to create an aesthetic communication intended to charm the divinities. In Buddhist pagodas, wooden drums are intended to mark the rhythm of chanted prayers. The bronze bells greet the spiritual beings and draw their attention to offerings and prayers. These sound-producing instruments represent only a tiny portion of the means applied to communicate with the divinities. If for some it is important to deploy the greatest means to communicate with the great beyond, others feel that true fervor is more important than the means. The Jew's harp, an instrument of decidedly modest dimension, is well known as an instrument in the court of love, but it is much less well recognized as a communication tool for reaching the spiritual beings. When a roof is placed on a new house among certain people living in the border region of Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, they invite the spirits to protect the house. The words of this prayer are not verbalized, but only vocalized, creating a certain intimacy in the relationship. Whenever men call upon the spiritual beings in return, those beings expect recognition and a certain payment for their services. The knowledge and power of the spirits who concern themselves in the affairs of men can be recompensed before, during, or after their service is rendered. If the spiritual beings like material things, such as blood, food, or flowers, it's true that they also appreciate offerings of sounds and dances. One of the most advanced forms of communication that may be found anywhere on Earth is the one that the Hmong have established with their dead. On a mouth organ, they recite ritual texts using as a base a complex polyphonic system copied from the tonalities of everyday speech. They describe to the souls the path to follow to arrive at the land of the ancestors. But since they believe that evil spirits might follow the path back to their village, they are careful to cover their traces with judicious dance steps. So it is, for thousands of years, people have given themselves the means to communicate farther and farther, faster and faster, in 3 dimensions, here, there, and beyond. All the same, despite the multiplicity and originality of all these practiced techniques, the way still seems long. Who will lead humanity to communicate in a 4th dimension, one that is essential to human survival? Communication beyond individual and collective egotism.
Santo,